Welcome to Existential Hyperfixation. Today we are making a large D20 for my D&D campaign. This dice was inspired by us watching, my partner and I watching uh, the Dimension 20 D&D campaigns. And the box of doom that is used uh, in those shows essentially is brought out to highlight moments in the campaign where the stakes are at their absolute highest. And so I have a group that I play D&D with, that I'm the dungeon master for, but unfortunately we play online, and we usually use Discord and do our campaigns there, and some online tools to help my players understand the map and the spaces that they're in. And so using a box of doom like they use in the show just doesn't quite work. In fact, most of my players don't even use physical dice. So I needed something to help highlight the moments where the stakes are at their highest. And I thought, what could be better than the ominous, intimidating sound of a large, heavy dice rolling on the floor of my space? And it just so happens I have hard floors in my office here. And so finding something that would, with some weight and some heft, to really highlight those moments, a big D20 sounded perfect. So I made the initial triangles out of cardboard, used an old Amazon box. And you may have noticed at the very beginning that there was a triangle with very clear measurements up at the top. That was not the final size. I actually ended up using slightly smaller triangles because the overall dice was going to be just absolutely massive. So I brought out, you see there on the bottom, the kind of light blue, light green, bluish green. Brought that out to kind of help me understand spatially how these triangles fit together. And I actually all but this last triangle that's left here on the side, the last set of 4 triangles, were fine to go together. And I put them, taped everything using just masking tape, and actually ended up adjusting this last piece again. You see there on the right side. My brain was definitely struggling to just understand the structure of how this was going to go together using triangles. I'm usually pretty good at kind of spatial awareness and understanding that stuff. For some reason in this moment, I needed that reference. And even still, I had to make some adjustments along the way. So now that I've got this dice all put together, I decided to hot glue all the corners together. And I'm initially using my larger hot glue gun, but the tip is not very fine on it. And so I realized that I needed to use my second hot glue gun that you see there on the top right. And I recently got both of these glue guns, and they are just fantastic. They work so well. They heat up so quickly. They're so consistent about how they heat. And I never thought that I could appreciate a tool like a hot glue gun as much as I do. And yet, here we are. I absolutely love these hot glue guns. They're absolutely fantastic. The Surebonder, the mini one that I use for the rest of this, is actually cordless, and it goes onto that little dock and heats up sometimes for an extended period of time because I forget that I'm filming. So it heats up the nozzle, and it retains that heat. And I found that it generally has enough heat to push through if you're not taking, long breaks in between applying the glue. It generally has enough heat stored in there to push through one kind of normal length glue stick, one of the mini glue sticks. Right here, I'm using the long glue sticks. I think those came with the glue gun. Doesn't matter. Those are Surebonder glue sticks, but they are the 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 long versions. Anyway, so gluing all the edges together here, filling in a few gaps and holes as I see, kind of as I go along. And at this point in the project, I didn't really even know if this was going to be the final version, if I was going to leave it as cardboard and apply some Mod Podge and paint over the surface of it. You see, I'm numbering the faces here because I didn't really know what the final version was going to be, and so once I had it all numbered and I played with it a bit and threw it around and, well, made a sad face on the one, I realized that it just needed a little bit more to it. And so I kind of looked around my office and I saw this roll of cork that I bought. And this roll, I actually bought to do basing for my minis. And I've used it for several projects. And once I saw the size of the roll and how much cork I was using for each miniature base, I realized that if I was just using it for basing minis, this is going to be the roll of cork that they could put in my casket when I go. It's just so much. In fact, this could probably be like, a generational thing that I pass down to family members in my will. So I decided to use a big chunk of it for this project, and it comes out so great. So I used the same triangle template that I used for the cardboard faces, and I oversized it slightly, and still it was a little bit too small, and I thought I might like these gaps between the faces, and maybe I could fill them with hot glue or something, and just realized that was going to be so much hot glue, it was going to take so much time to dry, it's going to be so stringy and messy. Let's just use cork. So I kind of extended the gaps using that trimmed down stir stick as a template, and some long strips of cork, and this is what we ended up with. And so then each of the corners was left open, and I realized that because of the way that the dice works, that if I were to extend those corners out just a little bit, in this case with hot glue, then those hot glue corners would take the brunt of the impact when it rolls. And overall, it worked great, and those hot glue corners absolutely do essentially protect the faces that aren't necessarily fragile. They're cork and they're covered with this matte Mod Podge that I'm applying now, but having those hot glue corners to absorb most of that impact does help protect the faces and edges from the majority of potential damage. I haven't damaged it yet, but I haven't used it a ton yet. I did get an opportunity to use this dice a couple of days after I finished it in my D&D campaign, and the metallic paint that you'll see me apply to the hot glue is the only casualty so far, and it's only because I didn't apply a primer. So I've been slowly peeling off, in kind of my time between other projects, I've been slowly peeling off that metallic paint so that I can use some primer on top of the hot glue. I may even have to sand them a little bit just to take some of the shininess off of the surface, and then be able to reapply the metallics. So the Mod Podge here is just plain matte Mod Podge. I did some tests on the raw cork, and it doesn't really interact with the paint very well, and so I realized that this would be a good base coat, and I actually did 2 layers of the matte Mod Podge just to build up, a nice, solid, consistent base for me to paint on. I don't do a ton of painting. Most of these faces only get simple black numbers. I did do a special design, some freehand design for the 1 face and the 20 face that I'll show you at the very end. But the Mod Podge works fantastic on sealing up the cork and making it so that when I do apply the paint, it's not, seeping into all the different recesses of this cork material. So for the numbers, I really didn't know what I was going to do. So often I start a project and I've got a general idea of what I want. In this case, I wanted a big D20. That was kind of my starting mission statement, was I want a big D20 that's going to audibly convey the weight of the moments. And so here I'm applying the metal paint that you'll see. It's very thin, and so this first one gets a little bit too far into the recesses, and there's another one a little bit later that I actually somehow got paint on my finger and then got it onto the dice itself. I was able to clean it up quickly, but I don't even know how that paint got on my finger. Anyway, so the weight of the moment was what I wanted this dice to convey, and everything else I just kind of figured out as I went along. And I really enjoy that part of crafting and creating, is understanding what the end goal is, but also giving myself enough freedom creatively. See, there's the paint spill. Enough freedom creatively to both apply the skills that I've already learned over the years, and also to learn new ones. I'd never applied cork over cardboard before. I had never tried to use hot glue in this manner for the corners before, and some of them didn't come out exactly how I expected, but I love the kind of liquidity of the way that the hot glue is applied. So here I'm writing numbers, and if you look at that number 9 in the second row, in my brain I wrote 20, 10, 19, 18, and then I got the 1 written down next to the what should have been the 9, and said, oh nope, this is supposed to be 9. So I crossed it out. I said, okay, that's not going to be a problem. Well, guess what? It was a problem when I went and wrote, and it's actually one of the first numbers that I paint. When I went and painted that 9, I got the 9 in, and then I don't even know if in that moment my brain said, this is only supposed to be 9, or if it said it's going to be 19. I couldn't even tell you. Anyway, I painted the 9, and then I started to paint a 1 and realized that it wasn't supposed to be there and had to clean it up quickly. I did end up using one of my scrap pieces of cork, which most of that scrap goes into my terrain box. But I did use one scrap of it to do some paint tests. And I first used the Pro Acryl Coal Black, which is a fantastic paint. I really love it. I didn't love that first set of numbers, and so I thought, okay, let's try a different brush. Maybe, and so I actually used 2 different brushes. Maybe it's too thick, so I watered it down. Well, I watered it down too far, so I just kind of said, this probably isn't it. I grabbed some acrylic paint markers to see if maybe it was the way that the brush was interacting with the cork, and I realized very quickly those paint markers are not the right answer. So I grabbed some Army Painter Speed Paint 2.0, and this is the black. I don't know the exact color. And I was really happy with it. It looks a little bit glossy, but you can see as it dries here, it comes out nice and matte, and it's fantastic. So I grabbed some Army Painter metallics to see if those were better. No, they weren't. So I just went with the Army Painter Speed Paint 2.0 black. I did add a little bit of Speed Paint medium just to give me a little bit longer working time on my palette. And then I started painting numbers. For the one face that you won't see me paint on camera because I really didn't know what I was going to do, I used a skull design that I've painted a few times. There's the extra 19, or the extra 1 in front of the 9 there. See, I told you it was coming. For the one face, I used a skull design that I've drawn a few times digitally. That I really like this design. For the 20 face, I really didn't know what to do. I actually went back and forth on it quite a bit. Even after I painted what I painted, I still didn't know if I was going to keep it. And after letting it sit and spending some time with what I put on here, I decided I did like it, and so I left it, and it's been covered in Mod Podge now, and I'm really happy with the overall final product of this project. So as we finish up these last few numbers, I hope you take some time to, number 1, drink some water, take some meds, hopefully your meds, but take some time to just explore your creativity. Give yourself the freedom to explore, to fail, to grow as a person, as a creator, as whatever it is that you're trying to grow as. I hope you have a fantastic week. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or questions, let me know.